Okay, welcome to the July 14th, 2014 meeting of the Morongo Basin Municipal Advisory Council. I'm Mike Lipsitz, the chair. And could we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Ms. Colorado, would you mind leading us in that? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. If Secretary Max Rossi would please call roll.
When I call your last name, please say present. Dugan? Here. Carmen? Here. Lundquist? Present. Lipsitz?
Here.
Surratt? Here. Rossi? Here. Tuttle?
Present.
Parrott? Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now, unless there are any objections, we will adopt the agenda. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda? There's one small adjustment, and that is before item I-1, Scenic Highway 247, which is a PowerPoint presentation on the screen behind us. We'll just take a short break, 5 minutes maybe, so we can clear these tables out of the way. Any other changes to the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda is as stands. Approval of minutes from the June 9th meeting. Has everyone had a chance to look over those? Any changes? Okay, hearing none, we will accept the minutes of June 9th, 2014. At this time is a call for public comment, and that is when, for items not on the agenda, if you want to comment, you fill out one of these cards. Is there anyone, I have just one card for an item not on the agenda. Anyone else want to speak about something in general? Okay, so could we hear from Susan Holmes, Wonder Valley? Hi, thank you. Yeah, if you would kindly go to the podium. And it's the tall, skinny microphone is the one that works. It'll come down to you.
Oh, the other one? Okay. This one? Okay. Good evening. My name is Susan Holmes. I live in Wonder Valley, just inside the county limit. And I'll give a little background really quickly. I'm an ex-civil service employee for 25 years with the City of Los Angeles, the last 9 years being with the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, so I know where from I'm speaking. And I'm here tonight because we're frustrated. My husband and I, we live in an area very sparsely populated, and there's a lot of people out there who think there's a lot of houses that are being vandalized, and because they're empty or vacant, or the landlords of course do not live there, and we all know that's a problem out in our area, as many places out here in the Morongo Basin. But the frustrating part is finding something to be done to correct that situation, which is scrappers going about stealing from these houses, whether it be wood or anything that they could find to recycle or to get something from. But that's not their property, it's somebody's property. And the frustrating part is when you do call the sheriffs, it's hard to get someone out there for this type of a call because they figure it's not a very important call. And and that's very frustrating because it brings the land values down. They're low enough as it is. And also, if they're going to do that next door to somebody who's living there, they might be doing it to our house next. And we have a lot of people in our area. My husband and I live there 24/7. We're the only ones, and about maybe 8 other landowners there. And my husband's kind of the neighborhood watch there. And since we've been there 15 years, there hasn't been a problem as far as on our area. But if you go across the Highway 62 between Amboy and 62, that's where these things are occurring. So, I'm here tonight because I really want to do something to correct the situation. that, I mean, I heard on the radio and read in the paper that if anybody you see vandalization going on, you report it. But when you report it, we hear, well, there's nothing we could do. And when I spoke to Mr. Lipsitz about this, he says, well, come to the meeting and air your, what you feel you have a problem with, and so that's why I'm here. So basically that's, hopefully we can work together with the police, because that's, we're here to do that. We want to work together to come to a solution, because we're not the only ones who feel that way. There's a lot of people that don't live there, or will probably feel better knowing that their places are being taken care of. So thank you very much for hearing me.
Excuse me, what is your intersecting street on the Amboy?
On mine, where I live?
The intersecting closest street to Amboy, so we have an idea of the area you're
Okay,
in?
I live near the airport. I live not on the Amboy side, I live on Highway 62.
Oh, on 62.
Right, we're off
Okay,
of the
now I
62
said
side.
Amboy, I'm sorry.
Uh-huh.
Okay,
So we're actually off of Pinto Mountain Road.
good amount, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, too. Are there any other comments on items? No, anyone else want to speak on an item not on the agenda? Okay, with that, we'll move into public safety reports. And with that, Captain Del Monte, nice. Hi, thank you for coming. If you need more than the 5 minutes, take 5.5.
You're getting feedback.
Really? Not, how's this? This is not, you can't hear me? It's not clear?
It's too loud, it's feeding back through the mic.
Who's in charge of the volume?
Yeah, I'll go take care of that. You can go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
Actually, the first thing I'd like to do is address the last comments. When I'm done, I'll give you a business card, and I'll have you call me so that we can look at specific areas we may need to target. I would like to let you know that anytime you call, it is important to us. And I apologize if we're giving you the impression that it's not important to us, because it is. However, we do have to prioritize our calls. So, and if it's a property that's vacant, it may take us a while to get out there. The other issue is we have to have a victim. So, I mean, we've got to track down the owner of that specific property. Do they even want anything done? Depends on how long. Some of these are vacant.
Property's owned by the state of California.
Okay, well, there you go. There may be the issue right there in the fact that they don't want to send a representative down to sign the complaint, for lack of a better term. But I've got some ideas, so I'll give you my card, you call me, and we'll work on that. Just the thing that I would like to discuss this evening, we've gotten a couple of phone calls. Seems like this is cyclical, depending on the time of the year or seasons, with business owners that or people trying to go into businesses and they feel like they're being accosted by various people in the community. If you're solicitors, for lack of a better term, if they're panhandling, that's against the law, and we can deal with that, so you can please call us on that. But if it is, although I haven't seen any picketing up here, but if there are pickets that's going on, or picketing, or other solicitors in front of Walmart or Vons or Stater Brothers, even though that property is considered private property, the Supreme Court has ruled that since it is open for public business and they welcome public, unless someone is specifically interfering with that business, we cannot stop them from soliciting. So whoever it may be, and again, a legitimate business that is asking for donations versus an individual that's panhandling, we may not be able to ask those individuals to leave, or that organization to leave. So If they're bothering you, you can talk to the store owners, but again, there may be situations where there's little to nothing that they can do. The law basically, not basically, the law says they have to be intentionally interfering with the business of the business. So if their arms are locked and blocking the door and stopping you from coming in, we can deal with that. But if they're just asking you for donations or trying to get you to sign petitions, whether that's election petitions or recall petitions, that they are entitled to do that. If it is solicitors and you have a concern whether they're legitimate or not, my suggestion, and I don't do it, is I don't donate to them. If it is a cause, and I tell people this all the time, a lot of our communities or people in the communities will call soliciting actually for the Sheriff's Department organization, and we get phone calls, are they legitimate? They are, but I don't donate to them either. And I encourage you not to donate to them. If you want to donate to that particular organization, write a check to that organization and give that money to them directly. A lot of them may just be for hire. So, I mean, it may be, well, I don't know, because I don't want to disparage an organization, but it might, I'll use the Sheriff's Employees Benefit Association. It might be a deputy or it may be a citizen soliciting for the Sheriff's Association. In a lot of those instances, those people are paid. So if you're donating $1, they're probably taking 50 cents of that dollar and then donating the other 50 cents. If you donate directly to those organizations that are soliciting, one, maybe they will stop soliciting your favorite businesses so you don't have to deal with them every time they go there, and then two, that money will, I can guarantee you, will go directly to that organization. So, yes, sir.
I wonder if you could give us a definition of what is panhandling. Do we have like a definition of what that is? For example, we have kids selling chocolate bars and candy bars at Stater Brothers or things like that, and they roam the parking lot. We also have, I noticed that just about every time I go for fuel, there's someone asking for money, and they come right to you when you go to get the gas. And so, do we have a definition of what is panhandling?
There is a definition, and I don't know it off the top of my head. But I'll take both of them separately, because one is actually panhandling and one is soliciting. Though the kids that are in the parking lot, you can actually see right on that candy bar wrapper who they are soliciting for. It could be their elementary school, it might be for science camp or a church group. It says specifically who they're soliciting for. And that's twofold. One, so you know who you're soliciting for. Two, the other is so you can actually take the wrapper and put it with your receipts, because you can write off, you know, that minus the fair market value of a candy bar as a charitable contribution. Someone that is panhandling is doing something for their own personal gain. Do you have any loose change? You know, you got 50 cents that I can have to go get a hamburger? That would be considered panhandling. And you know, I'm not immune to that. My wife is not immune to that. My wife, I don't know how many meals she has bought people. She won't give them money, but she will drag them into Del Taco or Carl's Jr. and buy them a meal, and I tell her not to do that. But let's face it, gentlemen, how many of our wives listen to us? But with those groups, again, there are groups in the community, and my stance on that is if you give them money, it's going to encourage them to come tomorrow and the next day and the next day, because they know they're going to get money. If you donate to a local charity organization that helps feed or clothe or house homeless, that would be better use of your dollar, in my opinion. But yes, there is, I can't give you the legal definition, but that is the difference between them. The Girl Scout, you know, the Girl Scouts that are out there, I mean, everybody knows the Girl Scouts and knows that that's a legitimate thing, and I guess, that is one of the businesses that I would contribute to. Like I always says, I'm a sucker for kids, but not parents. If the parents say, do you want to buy Girl Scout cookies? I tell them, no, you tell your kid to come and call me and I will buy off of them. So, do you want me to answer questions from the audience? I mean, I don't mind. Okay, yeah, yes, sir.
Okay, you're getting into a gray area because now if a panhandler approaches you, not that it happens often, but is it my word against his word when I report it to a sheriff? Not that I've done that, but, and here comes the question. I've reported close to a dozen times illegal shooting, and I'm told by the sheriffs that they have to see the illegal shooting. They can't go by my word. Whereas now you're saying we can have panhandlers arrested according to my word, but not illegal shooters.
Well, I didn't say that. I didn't say that you can have a panhandler arrested. However, it is a misdemeanor. If it is not committed in our presence, we cannot make an arrest.
They're not going to ask you for money.
Correct. So therefore, we have to have a signed citizen's arrest form. So if you were to tell a deputy, I was panhandled and I want to place him under citizen's arrest, then we would take that arrest. Again, that doesn't mean that we're going to take him to jail. We may just issue him a citation on scene, and then you have to go to court and the deputy won't even be there because the deputy would know nothing about it. You would get a subpoena. You have to go to court and testify against them. The same way with the illegal shooters. If we get out there and we don't see, because you have to be able to identify them. So unless they're standing in your backyard and you can say this is the person. If you say he's wearing, blue jeans and a blue shirt, and we get out there and there's 6 people, then we can move them from that area.
Well, I have a file about 1.5 inches thick on an incident that happened regarding, we knew exactly what we were doing, and we were given some pretty shady stuff by the sheriff. So that was over 20 years ago, but something.
Okay, all right. Well, hopefully things have gotten better in the last 20 years. So, and hopefully that wasn't me as a young deputy giving you that shady information. So, and that is all I have this evening. And unless you guys have anything specific for me, okay, thank you.
Thank you for that report. Is the sound any better? Yes, better? Okay. And now if we could hear from California Highway Patrol, Public Information Officer Joan Griffin, and Lieutenant Eric Robles. I'm sorry, Lieutenant, I lost your name for a second.
Good evening. I just first of all want to introduce everyone to our new commander. Commander Dan DeLong is gone to another assignment, so now we have Lieutenant Eric Robles. I just want to introduce everyone to him tonight. You have anything to say? Sure.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad to be here. As Joan said, I'm the new commander here. This is my beginning of my 3rd week. I'm not from the area. I'm actually from the San Bernardino Valley, where I've spent the majority of my career, 26 years now. But I look forward to being here and working with all of you in the community, and I'm looking forward to this new assignment. If there's anything I can do, please don't hesitate to call me. Contact me at the Morongo office, and if you had the Dan DeLong's old cell phone number, I have the same number as well. Okay? Thank you.
What is that sound?
I'll give it to you after that.
I just wanted to first of all say that the 4th of July holiday was very safe. The Inland Division of the California Highway Patrol had 0 fatality crashes. That's not just our Morongo Basin. That's Riverside, San Bernardino. All of those whole areas had no fatalities, which is over that holiday weekend, which is pretty awesome. There were 4 last year, so having 0 is pretty great. Does anyone have any questions tonight at all? Go ahead, sir. Did you have one?
Well, it would have been to, possibly the sheriff. There was an accident on Saturday afternoon, evening. Is that a highway patrol or a sheriff?
We're investigating the collision portion of that accident, the collision on Alto Loma. The events that happened prior to the collision, the sheriff's department are investigating. and I don't have really any information about that. I can tell you that it was a solo vehicle collision with 4 guys in it going really, really fast. They did a bunch of endos, and one guy was not wearing a seatbelt, and he was ejected from the vehicle.
What's an endo?
It's where you flip over, and it's okay.
End over end.
That's right.
Oh, I didn't know.
You flip over end over end instead of side to side, instead of rolling over side to side.
I didn't get it. I'm
That's all
sorry.
right. That's okay. I didn't know what the other, what did she say earlier? I didn't know what that other thing was you said earlier, so.
What did you say?
Remember?
Anything.
No, at the beginning, remember? I was out of
Oh,
my,
woofty.
a woofty.
Oh, yeah, woofty.
Yes. So that's not a dumb question, that's fine. Exactly.
Off topic here, let's just.
All right, does anyone have any more questions about that crash?
Different issue.
Any other issues?
Yeah, whatever the intent was in changing the speed limit signs on 62 between Joshua Tree and Yucca and on the east side of Joshua Tree, it's my opinion it wasn't to any particular benefit, because right now the speed goes from 65 with a warning that it's going to 45, then suddenly to 45, whereas at least before it was more gradual. And so it's been my observation that you've got 2 kinds of drivers: people who slow down and people who miss the transition entirely. And if you're one of those who slow down and has to be rather precipitate, that worry about people climbing up your tailpipe.
Just so I'm sure, we're talking about just outside Joshua Tree?
Yeah, just
Okay.
outside Joshua Tree on
Yes,
both
sir.
sides.
I know what you're talking about now.
Yeah, so just my opinion, I don't think that was a good move.
Okay, I'll pass that along to Caltrans. They set the speed limits for us.
Thank you.
But I can let them know. I can talk to their public information officer.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
On Old Woman Springs Road at Ritchie Road, there was a couple of posts and somebody put a roof over there, and it looks like they used sheet metal for the roofing, and when you're driving down, coming Old Woman Springs Road down towards town, that totally blinds you when the sun hits it.
Okay, I don't know about it, so I'll look at it. And if it is a visual hazard, I can pass that along. Okay.
Thank you.
I can tell you that's the outdoor vehicle watch, off-road vehicle watch group. They're going to be informational signs directing off-roaders to Johnson Valley, but I can let the group know that this problem.
Top black,
Okay, I'll let them know.
it's totally blind.
So you're going to handle it, Mike?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. Does anyone else want to do my job for me? Somebody want to handle the speed limits?
Take it down.
Anything else? Yes, sir.
I don't think that the speed limit is the problem so much as how the signage is arranged. My understanding is that to slow it down was a safety issue. Because that's a downtown area, so to speak.
So you're saying maybe if they had more 45-mile-an-hour signs?
Now, to think it through as to how to slow the traffic in a more gradual way. Maybe have a 55 for a little bit and then go to 45. It's also hard to see that 45 sign.
Okay.
All of a sudden there, and if there's a bush or anything in front of it, you can have somebody, the lights can come on, you had no idea that it was there. There isn't enough warning.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
You have a question, ma'am? You look like you had a question. Okay. Yes, sir.
Officer Griffin, we are, I have to say, we're wondering, why are you out of uniform tonight?
It's a big deal, I guess. So I'm on a day off today. Yes. But next time I come, I will wear my uniform for you. I'm not fired. Someone asked if I've been fired.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you for your report.
Have a great night.
Thank you. There's a lot of levity tonight. Next is Mr. Paul Smith, and Paul Smith is here. He wears so many hats in this community. He's here tonight as a member of the Planning Commission, but many of you will know him as the owner of the 29 Palms Inn and as a booster of the local art community, and also at the forefront of many conservation issues involved in the Basin. And I know for many years Mr. Smith has done a great deal for the Basin, so please welcome Mr. Smith to talk about the Planning Commission's process in approving solar and other projects. Thanks.
Good evening. I would like to personally state that I did get my wife to do something I asked her to do. It was a number of years ago.
Tread lightly, Paul.
It was a number of years ago, and she said, "I do." But since then, it's not done too well. So let me take, what do I have, 15 or 20 minutes, and you can wave a flag and kick me off. This is a subject which could probably occupy us for a long time. The fundamental question, well, one of the fundamental questions that was raised is, what is the relationship between the Planning Commission and the Land Use Services Department? Really a good question. And I've been operating on the assumption that I intuitively know what it was, but it caused me to go and actually do a little research. And here's a description from the Governor's Office of Planning and Research. The Commission is the Board of Supervisors' advisor on land use planning. It can be actually a decision which can be appealed, depending on the type of matter, or it can come before the Commission as to whether it wants to make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. The Board of Supervisors is the ultimate decision maker if, in the case of a decision, somebody appeals it to the Board of Supervisors, and it doesn't cost very much, so that's a frequent thing. The recommendation will go to the Board of Supervisors, and they can determine whether or not they want to pay any attention to us or not. So, but one of the things that the Commission does is it's a valuable intermediary between the public and the Board of Supervisors. And I'll give you a couple of examples. One, there was questions raised with me that I was asked to find out and see what the County Board of Supervisors would do. The information was given that vacation home rentals outside of the mountain areas of the county were illegal, which surprised the heck out of me because I believe that if you went to the web, you could find in the whole area here at least 500 listings for vacation home rentals. I remember bringing that to the attention of Land Use Services and the county attorney, and before I even completed the comment, they looked at me and they said, "Oh, that's illegal." I said, "You may not want to tell that to 500 business owners who are paying taxes to the county." So there's a little bit of a role there that you can have people like myself or Mike play in terms of bringing things to the county's attention. In this case, it would be Land Use Services that need to be addressed in some way. The actual legal status of the Land Use Services Department is it is the Planning Commission's research staff, which is interesting because we're cast up there. We're the ones that decide to either make a recommendation to the board or say yes or no to something that involves a decision which can then be appealed. So this was interesting to me to see it clarified like that from the Governor's office because, in fact, the Land Use Services Department performs so many administrative duties as part of bringing themselves to making the recommendation that I thought maybe that would be useful to go through those steps. I know I could look out in the audience
and see some people that I know these steps. So they can probably even correct me on some of them. But I think it's important, particularly because it's going to enable you to think about, if you don't like what's going on, and certainly there are areas in solar development where that's the case, this will give you some thoughts on how to go about using the law to understand the process, the Land Use Services Department and the Planning Commission properly. So I sat down and made myself a little chart. And there's also been some growth in the processes within the Land Use Services Department, which I'm going to talk about, which I can't tell you that I verified yet. But so an applicant for a solar project, first of all, comes to the Land Use Services Department and submits a project application on forms and through processes that they have approved. It gets a preliminary review by the staff, and after that, the application, no decision, but the application is deemed completed. It's now my understanding that due to inquiries and pressures from groups like this and others, that you can go onto the website of the Land Use Services Department and start to obtain statistical evidence about those applications that have been completed. It then starts to undergo a project review by the staff. Now this is interesting. The staff, now that I've been on there a year, I know that the staff on applications for a great many things, it could be a warehouse or a solar project, is constantly receiving and reacting to complaints and comments from both the applicant, neighbors of the applicant, and that sort of thing. And their job is to build up a file as they review the completed application so that they will be in the position, after they've completed this research, to bring it to the Planning Commission to make a decision. So unless, there have been a lot of complaints about all of a sudden people find something on an agenda and they don't have time to do anything about it. I believe there are now people, my guess is David Fick is one of them, who are watching these applications now and monitoring them and determining, and I'll talk about some of the environmental aspects of the solar in a few minutes, but determining when he should be making contact with the staff member on the land use planning staff to make comments, ask questions, submit letters, and they all go into the file and they're all built up. It's not a perfect process. I'm sure things get left out and that sort of thing, but it is a process, and it has already considerably improved since the year that I've been there. Now, the project review by the staff then ends up in a document, and that's the one that will go to the Planning Commission at a hearing. That's the one some of you will say, gee, many Christmas, this caught me by surprise, but I remember Paul did say, let's go down and take an early look at some of these things so the ones that we can see are crucial, we can do something about it. There has been talk, and I don't know what the status of it is, that anybody that wants to make a request to the county to be notified for all applications for solar projects anywhere in the county will get a response from the county, an affirmative response, and you get notified. It probably, or it should, it'd be interesting to see some people test this out. It should go to the individual planner who's working on that project, and so whenever something happens or there's filed, he's able to send out an email message. When I spent some time on a similar body with the Bureau of Land Management, they had that sort of a process. Okay, so the project review, the application is completed, everybody's looked at it, and now it comes before the Planning Commission. Assuming it's a solar project, there are several things that can occur. One, the staff may recommend that a negative declaration is appropriate and no environmental impact report is required. That's what you're used to seeing at the county level. At the state level, with these much larger projects, you're seeing just the opposite. You're seeing environmental impact reports coming in several different stages. Usually there's a draft, public hearings, and then the impact report comes out, becomes final. There's an appeal process, there's a filing of report, an appeal process, and then it ends up in court if you're dealing with a major project with a major environmental organization. The staff could also recommend, which could be approved or disapproved by the commission, that the project is exempt from CEQA. I myself have experienced some differences of opinion with my colleagues on the commission on some projects as to whether they're exempt. I've never lost sleep on that yet, because usually when I've arrived at my own independent decision that way, and there's a 4-to-1 vote or a 3-to-2 vote and I lose, there hasn't been a lot of evidence brought into the hearing by you. So I'm going to talk about one of the things after the hearing. The commission makes a decision. They accept the negative declaration and they recommend that the project be approved. Okay. The commission can decide to approve the project as submitted. And if they do, and one of you disagrees and has lodged those disagreements, then you can appeal it to the Board of Supervisors. If the project is denied, the applicant, for I think a fee of $1,000, which is nothing on a $5 million project, can appeal it to the Board of Supervisors. So the ones that I've been involved in where we denied a solar application, they've been appealed, and I think so far denied by the Board of Supervisors. Okay. Now, here's the interesting thing. This is process, but very, very applicable to solar projects. Whatever decision the commission makes must be supported by findings. Findings are facts in support of, or facts in the record, meaning somebody put them in the formal record, that support or don't support a particular position. And the commission can entertain consideration of those facts. Some people think erroneously that testimony is not a fact. That's incorrect. Testimony can be a fact. For example, there are a lot of people, or there are some people who have suffered from aeolian sand blown from some of these projects, like the one out on Lear. Their evidence that they've suffered damage from that would be their testimony. That's probably sufficient for them to go to the small claims court, file an action for $5,000, allege that's how they were damaged, and they will get a hearing. I'm not going to tell you if they're going to win or not, but that is testimony. That sort of testimony is a fact. So don't sell yourself short on your powers of observation. Now, it's mandated by law that every decision made by the Planning Commission be supported by findings of fact. Usually those findings are prepared in draft form by the Land Use Services Department, the planner on that particular project. And that planner, when it comes before the commission, that planner will sort of be the first person up there before us, and he'll describe the project as he sees it. Then the applicant and the Planning Commission will ask questions. Then the applicant will come up and describe the process, the project. And the Planning Commission can ask questions. Those questions should be directed at the facts that they have, that they're going to disclose or tell us about or give to us, or that are included in the record, that support the decision that they want from us. And then a decision is made. Most of the decisions that have come before us have been conditional use permit questions. Not all of them, but most of them. These are the things that we're supposed to be looking at when we make a decision as to whether a solar project should receive a conditional use permit to go forward. I'm going to talk about some other conditions which are mandated by the recently enacted ordinance, but these are just general requirements for conditional use permits. One, is the site appropriate for the proposed use? Testimony can have a lot to do with that. I never did read the decision that was made in the Dollar General case where the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors, I guess, were overturned by an action by probably people in this room. But I do want to read that and find out what the grounds were. It could be that there was adequate testimony as to the proposed use and it was not accepted, but I don't know the answer. Is the proposed use, this is a very important one, compatible with the surroundings or the use of nearby lands? Is the design suited to the site? Is the project adequate in terms of water availability and quality, utilities, sewage disposal, drainage, roads, fire protection? And lastly, and I'll get into this in more detail, if significant environmental conditions have been identified, are there conditions that will mitigate them? And there's a lot of room for argument with where we're at. Now, what I just described to you generally, you can find by going on to the website for the Office of Planning, the Governor's Office of Planning and Research. And you'll see, I don't know, 30 pages dealing with these issues. If you pay attention to those issues and frame them properly, I can tell you that the County Council and a lot of other people, including myself, if we see objections or encouragement based upon those issues, we're going to think very favorably of that sort of testimony and whatever facts that you submit. So it's a very interesting process, and some of you already know how to do all of that, but the more of you that do, the more that you'll understand and relate to the decisions that are made. Now, the last one had to do with environmental considerations. We had an interesting situation. How am I doing time-wise?
Maybe 2 more minutes?
10 more minutes?
No.
That'll work. That'll work. Okay. It was very clear a year ago that the solar problem was going to overwhelm us all with uncertainty and poor decision-making that was going on. And there was some peer-reviewed articles put out by Dr. Lovich and Dr. Emin, like from the U.S. Geological Survey, heavily peer-reviewed, that identified the environmental considerations which the large solar panel people, the large solar power people, were ignoring them and just claiming that, yeah, there's no problem with dust. We've examined that, and we've got some engineers who said there's no problem with dust. Let's go forward. Dr. Lovich and Dr. Emmons said none of those decisions N-O-N-E, were supported by peer-reviewed science. A major scientific breakthrough with the help of the U.S. Geologic Survey. And that was of great help when the BEAT project was put together in identifying those things that this ordinance should try to solve. And all of those different considerations were included in the BEAT's draft, and almost all of them included in the ordinance. But it was very difficult to be real specific, because the peer-reviewed type of work that was done to make these good bases for making decisions, and I'll try and give you a couple of examples, had not really been produced, published, it wasn't available. It wasn't available to us, and it also wasn't available to the Land Use Services Department. So a lot of people were very critical of Land Use Services. I think that criticism is unfounded, because all of us were dealing with a great deal of uncertainty, and we were dealing with huge sums of money, with huge political motivation, and very difficult to deal with. It's interesting, in looking at the big solar projects, you see the Bureau of Land Management rolling over and accepting almost everything that big industry supports. You see the Bureau of Land Management suppressing scientific reports from the National Park Service, the California Fish and Wildlife, dealing with a lot of these issues. This is a major problem and fault that's going on in the solar power business now. You can see, I'm going to run out of time in a minute, so those of you who came expecting me to talk about a bunch of different specific projects, I'm only going to talk about one or two if I can even weasel those in. Another one that Pat Flanagan brought to my attention and to others' attention had to do with migratory birds and the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, as well as the protection of avian species as part of the desire for biodiversity and the potential loss of habitat. We right now get applications for solar projects where the sole criterion that they're able to muster is, are there nesting birds on the site or within nearby view of the site? And if so, what do they need to do to mitigate them? And one of them came forward, and I had used this website from Cornell University and the National Audubon Society called eBird, and found 8 different major bird sites within 7 or 8 miles of this site. It's a solar site, solar photovoltaic panels, which creates a lake effect. So this was something the staff was unable to deal with, we were unable to deal with, and yet it's a very important aspect of it all. So when you...
effect?
The effect on avian species.
You said what was the word?
Lake effect. Lake effect.
Oh, lake effect. Oh, that the photovoltaic panels appear to be a lake, and the birds see that. They could see it from 40 miles away and dive into it and experience mortality.
I understand.
And so these are issues that need to be developed in the solar field. And those of you who think along these terms, start helping to develop that. Start making inquiry of USGS. USGS sent me a copy of the objections raised to the solar programs from the big state program, and it in fact recognizes the bird site by Cornell University and criticizes the Desert Renewable Energy Conservation folks up there in Sacramento and San Francisco for not paying any attention to it. All of this is up in the air. So these are things, now I can tell you some good thing that happened. For example, the county of San Bernardino, recognizing that they lacked expertise in a lot of these scientific areas, has brought on scientific expertise onto their staff to help as advisors they're more than advisors, but to help as advisors to the Planning Commission. It was last November. He's just beginning to get his feet wet. We'll see what that does. He would know instantly, and he'd correct me and say, Paul, you were wrong on that nuance. He knows more than I do about these things. The big problem that I'll talk about is Soda Mountain for solar fields. If that happens, that will have a major effect on this area, even though it's located over by Baker, near Zizek's turnoff. And one of the reasons it'll be a major interrupter of gene flow and wildlife habitat and wildlife corridors. It will really disrupt a major part of our desert. Its immediate financial effect will be economic, because that's a major part of our tourism, people that come through here and go up there. And if you look at the website, if you look at the BLM website for the Soda Mountain project, you'll now see that the National Park Service has lodged objections that the BLM has refused to consult with it and pay any attention to its objections at all with respect to the Mojave National Preserve. So there's a lot of interesting work to do. The county itself doesn't have much jurisdiction with these big projects. They have one. They are a lead agency on Soda Mountain because the Soda Mountain proponent wants to drill wells, and the county, interestingly enough, has authority over the wells. What they have told the National Park Service is, if you stop that, we'll just truck it in. Of course, belching CO2 and all of that in the process. So all of this is going on, and the more that the people get involved, the more that you get involved on the small projects or the lesser projects that the county has direct involvement in. Give us facts. Give us testimony. Help us out. Point us out. Do research with the Office of Planning and Research at the Governor's Office. It's easy to find. Just Google that. And you'll find out what it takes to make a claim under CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act. So I think I've way overdone my stay. I'll entertain 2 questions. Yes.
What's the contact for being notified on projects? Who do you contact?
I don't know the answer off the top of my head. I want to say to just notify Land Use Services, but if you run into a problem, Mike is the one to make sure that you get connected there, if they're quite ready for that. I think they are, though. Yes?
How long is it between the day I file, is there a statutory limit to get to Planning Commission, or, because we're not getting even the 10-day notice, we're getting a couple days. So by the time, and we're fine. So is there 60 days? I mean, when does the comment really have to be there to be considered in this process before you see it?
It has to be before us. And let me tell you something about...
I mean, a month before?
Well, we get a packet. Let's say I'm not spending all my time.
Well, let me ask a different question. How long from application to Planning Commission generally?
Oh, I just dealt with one that was 1.5 years. So, but they can be quick.
So there's a statutory.
But what you should know is that for the Planning Commission, most of us, not all of us, but most of us, really look at the material that's sent to us and made available to us by our advisors, the Land Use Services Department, about a week before the hearing. That's time for us, if we read it that day, to ask questions. That's available to you on the internet, but that's pretty tough for you to get it. But don't ignore the phone, and don't ignore your email. And I don't have a better answer to the 3-day question. Yes?
Well, I've hopped on the sand and the aggregate, and I haven't seen anything come out on it. Like Owens Valley, if they put stuff over some of these salt fields or some of our dry lake beds, it's cheaper to build it, but you're stirring up an aggregate that is real harmful to the human animal. And, you know, I'm sorry, I'm biased to humans, but, you know, a lot of the Marines in my era, you know, were exposed to Agent Orange and had respiratory problems already, and that aggregate just tears up the lungs. But yet, I brought this up earlier when they were putting the ordinance together and it didn't get addressed. You know,
Nobody knew how to address it then. There were so many issues that were raised by Dr. Lovitch and Dr. Emmon.
is that in Lovett stuff, when he talks about the aggregate? You know, like Owens Valley?
He talks about dust and that sort of thing, and I can tell you that I know that within the county, there are people now starting to take a good look at that. And I don't know what else to say in that. Mike might have comments on that. Okay, I'm through.
I did have one more question, and that is, you said it's important to write the planning commission and let them know factual information. Is it the same as when you receive a form letter that says, you know, these are the problems, write the planning commission and repeat to them what they already know from other letters? Is it helpful to receive, say, a volume of letters, or is it just the one?
To me, it does. I heard one planning commissioner say, dirt is dirt, it doesn't make any difference. And I heard another planning commissioner say, that sounds like a NIMBY argument. But it's got to get before us to do something about it. So my letter to you, Mr. Planning Commissioner, is I live across the street from this project, and it consists of desert pavement, which is held firmly in place by the forces of nature for thousands of years. And I have heard from the U.S. Geological Survey that if that is disturbed, that it will release underneath it very fine-grained aeolian sands, which will affect my use and enjoyment of my property and my health. And for citation, here's a citation. That's not something that I would ignore. Now, maybe somebody else that says dirt is dirt might ignore it. We're all people, and that's what we're dealing with. But bring forth what you want to do. So look at this. Look at the ordinance. We didn't really get into the ordinance. I was ready to, but time is out. Google San Bernardino County Solar Ordinance. And after a few stabs, you will get a distinct, clear copy of the ordinance. When you make your comments, use the language of the ordinance and cite the ordinance. That makes it a lot more difficult for my staff, the Land Use Services Department, not to treat it seriously. So, okay, that's it. I'm not even from the chairman, you don't get any more questions.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that.
Now, unfortunately, I have to leave now because my wife doesn't take my orders, but I take hers, and we're entertaining a bunch of guests.
Fair enough. I know you're doing renovations this week too. It must be busy over there. Yeah, thank you. We could listen all night long, but appreciate your time. Barbara Harris is here from the committee, is a Homestead Valley Community Council Committee for Scenic Highway 247 status. And Barbara is very active in the community. I know from the Historical Society and through the Homestead Valley Community Association, all kinds of organizations, along with husband Rob in the back and his technical expertise. Together they are AdSet Graphics in Yucca Valley. So thank you, Barbara.
Thank you. Don't stop at a microphone.
Uh-oh. There it is. On? Am I on now? Okay, I guess I'm in the groove. Hi, I'm Barbara. I want to thank the MAC today for having me. And I'm hoping through our presentation today that the MAC will consider a resolution to support Scenic Highway 247 in our committee in obtaining San Bernardino 247 to become a scenic highway. I need you to bear with me with our PowerPoint presentation. It's a little distorted and a little bit out of whack here, but and I will read along as we go, so what you can't see. We're gonna lower down the lights here so you get that's fine. So you get to see the pretty pictures and everything. That's kind of what it's all about. Because we want you to see what Highway 247 is all about. Oh, already popping up here. Highway 247 runs from Yucca Valley to Barstow. It's approximately 78 miles through the high desert vistas. It consists of historic associations along that route. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you're fine.
You're fine.
It has easy access from heavily populated Southern California, because it could come through Victorville, and you also come through Orange County, through the Coachella area. And it's just a pretty country drive from the mountains, and you also get to go through the Joshua Tree National Park. It's a jumping off place for off-road adventure, off-road vehicle adventure. Now, to become a scenic highway, you have to start off somewhere. And for one thing, the Highway 247 in the Caltrans Landscape Architect Program booklet, Highway 247 is rated as the last highway in the state of California that can be classified as a scenic highway. So that's one thing to remember as we go forward. So you ask yourself, how do you go about making a scenic highway? What takes the status of a post-scenic highway to change it from eligible to officially designated scenic highway? And what it basically takes to start out is you need to have a group apply to Caltrans for scenic highway approval, adopt a corridor protection program, or they have to receive notification that the highway has been officially designated as a scenic highway. One of the things you have to also have to be recognized as a scenic highway is the land has to be visible as you're driving down the road. It has to be visible from the scenic corridor, as it's called. It needs to be visible from the highway. And there are 5 legislative requirements, according to Caltrans, that are required for this to happen. And the number 1 requirement is the regulation of the land use and density of its development. Number 2, the detailed land and site planning. 3, controlled outdoor advertising. 4, careful attention to and control of earth-moving landscape. And 5, the design and appearance of structures and equipment.
Your mic is up.
It went off.
Good.
Okay, Bob, can you hear me anyway? Try to stop.
You're fine.
Okay, the first one, regulations of the land use and density of development. Okay? So, how many of you have been down 247? Most of you around here have been down that highway. And so, what I want to tell you that most of the regulations of that highway already exist. Okay, thank you. Okay, much better. Feel better. So I don't have to yell. Most of the regulations that start, now you figure this is a highway that's 78 miles. So we're going to start in the town of Yucca Valley. And so you start in Yucca Valley, and there's only a 5-mile area in Yucca Valley. That highway is within the town boundaries, and it is already zoned for industrial and little visible development. So when you look at Yucca Valley, it starts down at Highway 62, goes up Highway 247, Old Woman Springs Road, gets up to the top of the mesa, and there's that 5-mile area that is consistent already with the zoning. Then you're going to come into the Homestead Valley communities. that zoning and local codes are already developed for rural, low-density zoning, and that has already been established by the county and has only one commercial strip. Then you get into Lucerne Valley, which is already zoned for rural and agricultural zoning. And in between that, it's already zoned for miles and miles of BLM. So, you know, that regulation has already been taken care of according, you know, Caltrans doesn't have to look into anything new. So number 2, detailed land and site planning. So this is another thing Caltrans would have to look into. However, in our case, Highway 247 already travels big open wide desert. You know, most of us who go there know that you're driving down the highway and most of it has the Small Homestead Act settlements from 1950s to the old agricultural communities of Lucerne Valley homesteaded in the 1900s. Okay, so there you have little communities, and then you have like present construction that has popped up in between. You have the communities that'll come in from maybe Flamingo Heights. Then you look at the communities of Landers, and then you come out to Johnson Valley. So you have your communities and your development few and far in between. And then in between that, as you're driving down the road, you'll come across weathered and abandoned structures like you see there, or like the little homestead cabins that are left out. But those add to the ambiance of the highway. The next thing that Caltrans asked you to do is to control of outdoor advertising. Now, I don't know about you, but I've driven up and down that highway, and I haven't seen any major billboards out there. So it's already something that has already been addressed in the codes that already exist. So it's something that we don't have to worry about. And the signage that is there is few and infrequent. And, you know, so if you do have it, and you do see it along the way, it is not obtrusive. There are few commercial strips that do have signage, but it becomes part of what you're experiencing on the highway. And down below, those are a couple of, if you can see, these are a couple of the views that you see from the highway. On the bottom there, that's Spy Mountain in Landers. On the right here, this is a pass going through the Ord Mountains. Okay, number 4. You want to pay careful attention to and control earth-moving landscaping and the design and appearance of structures and equipment. Okay, driving down the highway. I don't see many structures, and there aren't many big equipments, and there aren't many things going on already down the highway. I think the biggest thing we need to look at here is we have granite outcrops that are scattered along on the roads down by Johnson Valley, and then we have the beautiful lava buttes over by Yucca Mesa. So our concern would be that some big, earth mover would come along and, take those down. But driving along 247, they become part of its scenic charm. Now, when you're addressing 247 becomes 2 sections and 2 histories. From Yucca Valley to Lucerne Valley, it is called Old Woman Springs Road, and that has a history to itself. And then from Lucerne to Barstow itself, that has a completely different history itself. And down below, if anybody's been out to that particular area, Johnson Valley and those areas, you'll get those pictures of those mountains, the snow-capped mountains as you're driving down the road. And especially towards the winter, oh gosh, when those clouds come over and the sun rises, they come over and dust the mountains. Also, depending on the time of days, you get the sunlit backgrounds. Even now, during the hot summer and the inversions that do happen, the mountains change colors. So you can see the difference of just what the seasons alone can do to the mountains. Now, the two districts. The first district is the Old Woman Springs Road section. The first district here, now I have a picture down here on your right, and you'll see it. It's called Old Woman Springs Ranch. And if you can see, it's Scenic Highway 247 on there, and that's the road. It's not far from the ranch itself. And earlier, Paul Smith was talking about migratory birds. This ranch is very important because the ranch itself, if you go out there in the fall, it is where a lot of the Canadian geese will fly over in the fall. And on this particular property, there are several springs and lakes. And the Canadian geese will make their stop there in the fall and just hang out in the lakes. As you're driving down in the middle of the desert, all of a sudden, if you drive down 247, look off to your left, you'll see this oasis of trees and little lakes that are out there. Now, this goes back to prehistoric and has the historic pathway. And back in the olden days, I should say olden days, you know, the turn of the century, and so there were women who would go to these springs, and that's where they would get their water. They would come down, and mainly that's the water, northern flow from the San Bernardino Mountains. This also had miners and freights from the Dell Mine. They would come into this area, and they would occupy this particular area. This is the grazing land for cattle. And also during World War II, this is where the, Patton would also train out in this area. And it's also where the people would homestead and bought their 5 acre, as we call jackrabbit homesteads. Yes. Okay. As we're going through this now, I'm kind of cutting through this really quick. I've got a couple more. This is a historic California, and it's also, I'm talking more, this is where the cowboys and settlers, you could go through here and you could see different kind of homes in the back area of the landscape. I'm gonna have to rush through this. Paul Smith took all my time. Okay, and we know about the Mason geology. Okay, it has lava flows, Black Hawk slides, prehistoric. You all know about the giant rock that's back out there. This is all tourist attractions. Also, too, part of the Old Woman Springs area, it brings out hiking, camping, horseback riding. Also, the Old Woman Springs section is popular with nature lovers and filmmakers. And we all know that in the springs, the flowers blossom, and it's a popular place to go flower watching, and Hollywood loves to come out and make their movies. Also, now in the Barstone section, it's known for the agricultural pieces that it'll have. You can go out to the Lucerne Dry Lake and climb into the Ord Mountains. It also feeds into Route 66 of Barstow. It stretches the road to areas that are yet to be settled. Again, a lot of this terrain is, as you drive from the road, is all scenic highway from the road itself. And it's very popular with off-road travelers. Very popular at the Barstow area, very popular, and as you watch the vegetation, those who have heard of the King of the Hammers, that's more out towards the Johnson Valley area. This is the Barstow section. And you come back down into the Yucca Valley, the south end, the 247, the Joshua Tree Gateway communities. This is the south end that has access to hotels, restaurants, shopping area, the Joshua Tree National Park. And you can go here and You know, again, you have connections to the Integratron, Gooblers, Pioneer Town, and Desert Christ Park. You're here in Yucca Valley. Then if you go more towards the north, you're in Lucerne Valley, where you can fuel up and you're at the gateway of going up to the mountains, up to Big Bear, over to Apple Valley, and Victorville, and Interstate 15. And from there, you can connect to Barstow, where it has the Mojave River Valley Museum, and see all the museums in the Route 66 Museum. Also, too, from there, the Highway 247 will connect to the interstate to Route 66. So you can connect actually from Interstate 10, Route 62, take it up to 247 to Route 66, and take that whole scenic view out to the back area. So what does it take for designation? It takes a lot of reading. I don't have time to probably go over all this with you and what it basically means. It means, you know, maybe prohibiting billboards and regulating signs. It means make development more compatible with the environment and in harmony with its surroundings. It'll mean to regulate grading, to prevent erosion and cause minimal alterations of existing contours, to preserve important vegetation features. It means prevent the need for noise barriers, sound walls, by requiring a minimum setbacks for residential and development. Although we don't have to worry about residential development because most of it is already just open desert land. As you can see, we have the oldest king clone creosote, supposed to be the oldest living organisms on Earth. The yucca rings preserved in the Anderson Dry Lakes. And also, too, by having 247 as a scenic highway designation, it will enhance the community identity and pride, encouraging citizens to commit to preserve community values, and also to enhance land values by maintaining the scenic character of this corridor. And it will provide a vehicle for the community to promote local tourism that is consistent with the community's values. So as part of this, I am a tour guide. I enjoy taking people out, and one of the areas that I do love to do is to just start at the beginning of 247 in Yucca and take them all the way out to Johnson Valley. If they can take it even farther, I'll go to Lucerne Valley, and if we can go farther from that, it's out to Barstow and Route 66 for the day. Actually, it takes, by that time, they're ready just to spend the day overnight in Barstow and head back the following day. So we would like the MAC to consider us and be part of the designation and help us get designated for 247 designation. So anybody have any questions? Yes.
In the industrial area there, that first 5 miles headed up from Yucca Valley, since Yucca Valley, town of Yucca Valley owns that property and it's designated that way. I hate to see it so thoroughly industrialized, re-uglified by all of that. Would the scenic designation help prevent that?
It would not change anything different for Yucca Valley that isn't already in their city codes. The town of Yucca Valley has already established city codes for their development and what they require and how far back, you know, signage and things would have to do and all that. So it would not, I don't know to what extent Yucca Valley would want to change their codes, but at this particular time, that would not interfere with what Yucca Valley needs. Yes?
Do you have support of Barstow yet?
Yes, we have the support of Barstow. However, the only town that has not supported us is the town of Yucca Valley.
Have you presented this to the Yucca Valley yet?
Yes.
And they said no to it? The chamber wasn't happy about it.
Why, did they say?
It's just, yeah.
I suppose that you did remind the valley that they have accepted this, what do you call
Yes.
So this is something which would be very...
We are aware that that is how the designation would run. And so, again, it is up to us right now to talk to the more of the city. We are ongoing with negotiations with them. And however it goes, the designation might stop at the town of Yucca Valley, and that would be it. Yes.
My question is, do you need to have the approval of Yucca Valley for this to be called scenic highway all the way to Barstow and up to Yucca Valley?
That's a good question. That's something.
You could just put a sign there saying, this next 5 miles sucks.
But no, it would be that would be the end of the designation. That would be, the end of the sign.
If I could just add a couple things. I don't know how everybody is in here, but if I'm out traveling and I get my AAA map and I'm looking at it and I go, well, should I travel on I-10 or I-15 or take that dotted road there that's the scenic highway? I'm on the scenic highway. And that's me. But so I don't know if you've ever been to Valley. There's the road to Hana. You go in the store, you buy a CD, you plug it in, and on the road to Hana, it said this past this. And over here on this waterfall and these trees, I foresee something like that for 247 that will point out all of the attractions and the old lines.
We do have a list. There is a list we have quite a group of people who do support us. And if you would like to be on, we're looking for businesses and people such as, community oriented people, large businesses. We have a lot of the support of the museums in Barstow, Lucerne Valley, Johnson Valley, everybody down the road. It goes down, Joanna can speak, and it just stops at Yucca Valley at this time. So
it's a tremendous tool to fight against solar fields.
Yes.
You have a website for all this stuff?
Yes, we do. Yes.
Give it to us then.
The website is Scenic Highway 247.
No, what?
.com?
.org or what?
Oh. What is it? Is it .com?
Yeah,
.com.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
What about any property owners that have adjacent land from here to Barstow? What building restrictions do they have?
The code is already set for the area that they live in. So your town code, whatever, if you're living in Barstow, you already...
No, I meant the land between Yucca Valley and Barstow, the unincorporated.
That's BLM covered land.
All of it? So it's how-
The unincorporated area.
So what if somebody had a homestead piece of property they still owned adjacent to the highway? What would be their building restrictions? Could they build?
You just can't put up billboards, that's all.
You can put up a billboard on
You
your
could build a home?
property. Yeah.
With the
But
current setback?
Everything you have your own you have to have setbacks from the highway anyway when you're doing that.
So there would not be any restriction on any landowners to build a home adjacent to that highway?
No.
Is that a fact? Is that a fact?
I would know that for a fact. That's something I would have to see.
Yeah, because, I understand that once you designate something as scenic highway, there are restrictions that come with that. There's expectations that you cannot do certain things. And so, Mark's question is valid. And then how would this impact property owners and not ordinance?
That's very true. However, the thing that I understand in the way it is that, say for instance, you have a place like Flamingo Heights that is already established. You have your businesses along that particular highway, and the way it goes, it would not stop those businesses from expanding. It would not stop those businesses from putting up their signs that are already on that highway.
And if I own 5 acres next to one of those businesses, this new designation would say that I couldn't put up another business there, or be more difficult to do. But well, do we know that? Because, so that the question would be, would the scenic designation, how would that restrict?
My understanding of that designation follows the same, I'm sorry, I didn't get into the same categories of the restrictions, It is, the actual restrictions are listed in your category in the background. But all the, of what it would restrict is in your, I'm sorry, this
Is that under the what it would do for us?
What do you mean?
Is that, you said restrictions, I only saw what you said.
It's at the back of the.
Yeah, what it will do for us. That's where it's.
It says this, it says,
It
is
would be
it,
on page 20, 23, 20,
I don't think,
22,
is it this page?
20.
Where you say
No,
what else
it
does
would be-
scenic highway do for us? It regulates grading to prevent erosion, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Okay.
What else does scenic highway designation do for us?
So Max, you can't have a junkyard dump a concrete can at the gravel
It
pit.
tells you,
And-
there's 3 pages that has that.
And I understand that. Now, this is good. What I'm trying to say is that intuitively, we all want to preserve our beautiful desert. It's not I'm saying we shouldn't do that. The thought that comes to my mind is, here's the thought. If we already have regulation that has those things already in place, why do we need to go to the next level? You see, not that I'm saying that we shouldn't take care of our desert, we should, but why, we already have, as you mentioned, those regulatory things in place. Why do we need to go to the next level?
Would it,
Why have a national park?
because it's a one-stop shop, because it's the next time that, why would you say that the guy who wants to come in and put the whole big solar panels and everything in, why do they still have to go and get all the regulations and have to go to all the different?
So what you're saying is, if the regulations that currently stand, even though it's designated as scenic highway, that would be okay.
Yeah, it's all.
But as an individual, I don't want to step on anybody's property rights to build something that they held the land for many years.
I'm sorry, but that was one of my, from a historian standpoint, that was one of my conditions, or one of the things that I was very concerned about also when looking into this.
It's something you can research.
Yes.
Let's say somebody owns 5 acres adjacent to the highway between Johnson Valley and Lucerne, beautiful vista. Can he build his home on that land without any, using the county code?
Yeah, it's a well.
Pardon?
That's a separate issue.
So I think what you said, and what I did a study on this some years ago, the house or whatever you build is perfectly fine, but you do it in a compatible fashion. So you don't build some, big white sugar cane.
Is that in the code?
That's what,
I think there.
yes. It's within, there's one that it says it was within the, so it looks and provides the part of the community and what is based on the rural code of the, enhancement. I'm sorry, this is just all kind of.
Could I ask you a question?
That page.
Would having a scenic highway carry more weight when it came to opposing solar plants, wind farms, etc., industrialization?
Oh, it definitely would help because, again, the thing about a solar corridor, scenic corridor is what it's called, is as you're driving down the highway, it needs to be noted from the highway that you have to maintain the view from the highway from this distance. So let's face it, as you're driving down the highway and you have wind turbines or solar panels going on from the view, that distracts from the view. So you would definitely have that.
But it would have more weight.
Gives you another layer of protection.
Yes, it would definitely have a questionable effect.
But I'm like Mark here, I'm concerned, and Max, I'm concerned that people who have already bought land there, how much is that going to restrict their building? I'd like to see that research.
Yes, exactly, because for instance, if we should get on with this, designating this as scenic highway, could this whole project that we are making in accord with now, would it be hijacked by one person on the highway who has a poultry, and who wants to make a big stink about this?
Here's my question then. Where would you specifically be considering to build a house? Would you build a house like in Flamingo Heights, where they already have the building codes and they already have a housing, and the house would already sit there?
It would be anybody, it's like the lady from...
Yeah, I'm saying that it's already there.
It's already there.
It's already, one person was chicken coop right on there. I mean, I'm thinking now of one sign that used to be there about UPS, FedEx.
The particular area has their own codes that they live, and that's
So
what
we couldn't hijack
Caltrans-
this whole thing, they wouldn't have the power to hijack?
They wouldn't have to, they wouldn't.
Could we get documentation from the county on this?
Yeah.
It would be, yeah, it's actually Caltrans that would fall under the
We're talking about the specific building restrictions somebody might encounter if this is designated as scenic highway, and if there would be any building restrictions. You said we can't assume that just because it's bare land right now that hasn't been built on the 50 years, that somebody would not want to put a house there and be restricted from doing that.
But that would be no difference than, say, for instance, a solar field coming up, or saying that they want it. So would you want to do the same then to say that what's the difference between a big solar project?
I mean, we're discussing a moot point here, we need to know the facts. And we can't say, well, I think, or maybe it's going to be this way. We need to know exactly what the repercussions of it will be so that we can make, I mean, I don't feel like I can make a decision tonight because
No, I would rather
need more
table it until we get some information.
Okay, thank you.
I think, Almonds had her hand up.
Did I hear you that there is a lot of OHV activity outside of Johnson Valley?
Barstow has designated OHV parks.
Well, it's not too scenic, I would think, because it ruins the environment and the dust. So I would be concerned about that, standing in the way of getting the designation. This is the thing that Fraser and the places aren't very good.
Any more questions? Yes.
You said at the beginning of your presentation that the 247 was the last one that even meets the criteria, and then it's the last highway in the state of California, so if it doesn't go for this, basically that's gonna...
Yeah. Well, that's it. It's the last one that's been designated by Caltrans to be eligible for designation.
How can we help to bring this about? What can we do?
Right now, we've submitted it. We need the support of community in it. We've submitted it to the county of San Bernardino and to some government officials, and we're just waiting, it's a waiting game.
Who's the final decider?
Caltrans, and basically Caltrans is one of the steps along the way, and then you have to, of course, the state, and they're signing off of it.
One more question.
Would it be useful to have a showing of what you had at a longer talk in the community center in Yucca Valley? If Yucca Valley would go home for this, wouldn't that be useful?
The support of Yucca Valley would definitely be helpful, having them on board, because that extra 5 miles definitely would be helpful. The whole designation of, having the support of everybody from Yucca Valley to Barstow has already found it a very supportive with regards to, the tourism that it would bring in, the amount of, what it does more for the community. But right now, there's also in Johnson Valley, and what people don't know, that it might not be the wind turbines or the solar panels, but in between Lucerne Valley and Johnson Valley, again, you've got the transmission towers, that whole view that you talk about, and all the view that we've looked at and made those beautiful, like in the views that I showed you, they're all going to be lined with transmission towers. So that might not be down the middle of the highway, but it might be off in the middle of the desert somewhere, but it's also...
Would you be willing to come back to the next meeting for a short presentation of what
I
the
will.
building codes are along that whole scene?
I will look more into it.
That would be great, we appreciate it.
Barbara, thank you so much for the presentation. It was very nice. So without a motion or a second, I'm assuming we don't have either, we will table this till next month. Okay. And moving on, and quickly, we have the next motion, the next item of business for consideration is an extension of the review period for the Desert Renewable Energy Conservation Plan. And Gail Swart and Mark Lundquist both recently attended a BLM meeting about the same. And could you speak to it a bit?
Yeah, I'd like to correct that. I wasn't able to make it, but Gail was, and I'll prep her or her introduction to the topic. Basically, the BLM has an advisory committee, just like the MAC is for the county supervisors. And Gail attended the meeting and was surprised at the turnout from particularly Lucerne Valley on their issues up there. And it was a packed house, and I'll let her continue with what she found and what we need to do. Thank you.
Okay, tonight was very interesting for me, hearing all these things about the BLM, because the BLM is in the process of creating a document called the Desert Renewable Energy Conservation Plan. And this is going to be a document that will cover all BLM lands in desert areas and how it can be used for renewable energy. And even as we were hearing about the scenic route, there's a lot of land on 247 that's BLM land. And right now this document is in the process of being created. The draft is supposed to be out, I believe, in August. There was 150 people there from Lucerne Valley because BLM has been asked to have their property in Lucerne Valley used for a wind turbine farm with 500-foot wind turbines. And it's right next to people's private property. And so the people from Lucerne Valley were very interested in having some input into this plan. And the DAC is the Desert Advisory Council, and April Saul is on it, and Seth Shettar is on it. And this is going to affect all of us. This is going to affect all of us here because BLM can do whatever they want to with their land, and now they're developing the document that's going to say exactly what they can do. The document is going to be 10,000 pages long. And normally they have a 90-day review period. With the input that people from Lucerne gave to the DAC committee, they said, let's ask for 180 days. So what I asked to be put on our panel was for us to also send a letter asking for that 180-day review period. I'm really surprised that I haven't seen anything anywhere in any of our newspapers or any of our media that this is even happening. And maybe it goes along with what Mr. Smith said about the BLM just does whatever they want and they try to hide things from people. And so I think we're up against another huge governmental agency that if we don't all kind of get together, it could really impact all of us. I mean, Morongo Valley is surrounded by BLM land. I know many people have property right next to BLM land. So I'm asking that to begin with, we, along with the DAC, ask for a 180-day review period, and then maybe we can figure, okay, how can we help review this 10,000-page document?
Thank you, Gail, for the presentation. If we could hear from the council, and if we could limit comments to the review, the amount of time for the review period, it would be, in the interest of time, it would be helpful. Okay, any comments?
No, Gail and I have discussed it at length, and we were thoroughly amazed that on a 10,000 word document that they were only given 90 day. I don't think I could read it in 90 days, 10,000 words. So I am totally in favor of passing a resolution in support of upping that 180 day comment period.
Mike, do we have to send this to the Board of Supervisors first, or can we just send this directly to the BLM?
No. We could do both at the same time.
Okay.
It's basically formality. Any other comments from the, any other?
Pages.
Any other comments from the council? Okay, here, now, I know we have a card from Marina West. You want to speak on the subject. Thank you.
I'll do it less than 180 words. Okay, speaking to the reso, first of all, thank you. It's great, Gail, that you brought this forward. I think if you pass it, make sure you send it to the Planning Commission, make sure you send it to the Governor's Office, obviously back to BLM, and the CEC, California Energy Commission, who's doing the DRECP. So we got to keep our heads straight here. It's a little vague as to who we're really addressing. The DAC is a BLM committee, right? So we probably want to add BLM there, because I think DAC, Desert Advisory Council, is a committee of BLM, is it not? Okay. And then I would say cover all your bases, because now is the time to make ourselves known. And we did have some community meetings about, I don't know, 9 months ago about the DRECP, and it's been silent because we've been waiting for the document, but I would strongly encourage that we activate some of the active Basin Energy Assessment Team members with the committee of the MAC so that we can chop this thing into pieces and get a community review done that the MAC can support too, because we're going to need all of those voices. Thank you.
Randy, can I ask you one question? You mentioned the base.
I said the governor, the California Energy Commission, the DAC is a committee of the BLM, so it was a little unclear to me who the reso is addressing. If we had more time, I think it's got all the things we want in it. It's short and sweet, but it really is about the fact that the energy they want to generate in the DRECP is not really to benefit us for the cost that it's going to bring to bear on our lives, on our property values, and on our economy in the form of tourism. You've heard it all. You know the story. Now we got to get the story out. And we've got to turn them away from this solution, which is way behind. You know, it's not the recommended solution over time is giant industrial scale solar panels in the desert.
So do you think we need to reword this,
I would just do first line, the Desert Advisory Council of the BLM has requested 180, and you want now the 180, you're supporting that.
Your first sentence there says, whereas the Desert Advisory Council requests a total of 180 days. No, they're saying 90 days, we're asking them to make it 180.
No, the council wants, it has requested, I was just saying that DAC is really, it's a committee of the BLM.
it's like the MAC, but it's called the DAC, and it's for the BLM, and it's with community members in it.
It's an advisory council to the BLM.
Then who is it being requested to?
That's what I wasn't sure. So I think it's California Energy Commission who's releasing the document.
I agree. I understand.
But I would.
We are in support of DAC's request.
Correct.
For a 180-day.
Yeah, so the language would just be that it's the DAC of the Bureau of Land Management. You identified that council. They've asked for it. You're supporting that. You're requesting that. And then it's addressing to, I think, CEC, California Energy Commission, is who you're asking to. Oops, wrong mic. The CEC is who you're asking to grant a longer extension, but I think the governor has some control in there too. And remember, the onslaught is mostly in San Bernardino County, unincorporated lands, so it affects our communities.
Will you give us that list? Because I couldn't write fast enough to write all the people we should send it to.
I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
Any other, hi, David. Thanks.
This is just a word of caution on procedure. Being 7 years on the JT MAC, the MAC is not autonomous, that's a big word there. You have to go through your third district. Anything you're writing from this MAC goes through the third district. You can't send stuff from this MAC to the BLM or anybody else without authorization from those above.
Thanks.
And then also, Paul Smith was on the DAC. How long ago? About 10 years ago. And I was going to ask him a rhetorical question, and it was going to be if anybody didn't hate the BLM. Period.
Dr. Carmen?
I was planning to snooze during this meeting, but there's some pretty heavy topics coming down, including this one. And I would encourage 2 meetings that have a limited agenda. One would be to get somebody from land use out here and take on both the scenic highway and the formula retail, maybe at the same person at the same time. And then secondly, I'd like to see a separate DREC-P program where we get some people in who can talk about that and do nothing else. Even if it's an in-between meeting, like a 2-week meeting rather than the other. I think this is so important, and the idea of a 500-foot windmill anywhere within 100 miles of me is terrifying. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? I think, and any additional from the board? I think it would make sense if we formed a committee just to look at DRACP. And if Gail, could you head that up? Thank you. And you're not limited to the MAC. You can pull from members of the public to form that committee.
Okay.
But we should start to deal with it, and I know Mr. Smith has additional information on that too.
So are we going to wait can we?
I think that time is of the essence, I believe, as far as determining the 180-day period. So with the amendment, if someone wants to propose the resolution with the amendment, adding the words of the BLM to the first whereas statement, that should be sufficient. We don't need to read the entire, copies are available if you didn't pick one up on the table at the front.
Yeah, I think time is of the essence. Right?
Are you making a motion?
We also will have to send it to Supervisor Ramos's office, so that's going to...
I think first we need to do that.
Yeah.
Are you making the motion?
I'm making that motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
So, all in favor of resolution Morongo Basin MAC 006? Say aye. Aye. And any opposed? We have one absentee and any abstentions? You have a question on the procedure?
Since the MAC
I think, I'm sure they can. I'm not sure where you direct those to, just offhand, but yeah. Yeah. Right now, we're just dealing with this resolution, though. But yeah, I would encourage people to write, to get involved, and if you're interested, to contact myself or Gail and get on that committee, because this is coming down the road. It's big. Moving on, then. Our community officer and committee reports all rolled into one, which we're gonna have to, as usual, burn through them. Can we start down at that end with Mr. Dugan?
Before we get to community report real quickly, the BLM problem, that's what Jeffrey talked about.
was the letters to PLM, to the governor. That's one thing we did for them. 500-600 people showed up to meetings, wrote letters, and that was a major part of keeping those wind generators out of Pioneer Town. Very quickly, one of the things I did want to talk about, because I had mentioned it a couple of meetings, was the show deal in Pioneer Town. Went off on July the 5th. I don't know if any of you attended, but it was well attended by the general public. They had some 25 different parade entrances, trick ropers, a potluck barbecue afterwards. They fed about 100 people, so it went off really well. All of those that were involved said they would never do it again. 2 days later, they're starting to plan for next year. So it was a wonderful event. When you look back on the history of this particular event, it goes back into the 60s when Pioneer Town was kind of in its heyday to show people on that. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, can y'all hear? There's been a little activity in Yucca Mesa, namely vandalism and theft. So the neighbors in the northwest quadrant of Yucca Mesa have decided to form a neighborhood watch. And if there's anybody here in the northwest quadrant of Yucca Mesa, you can let me know and I'll head you off to the right person. What's been happening is there's theft of things that, you leave outside laying in your yard, or you leave a window open and it's too convenient for them to open the window and take something out. Or another thing that's going on is a lot of vandalism as far as, well, I'll be honest, running through my fence and breaking things and what have you. So we're going to form a neighborhood watch, and hopefully, and the Sheriff's Department is leading that.
A lot going on in Joshua Tree other than what you see on some of the agenda items here, and I'll make it short for time. If you really want to know what's going on in Joshua Tree, take a look at the Joshua Tree Facebook site. If you're not on Facebook, I'm sure all of you have computers. Get on it and take a look at it. Joshua Tree Chamber of Commerce. And they publish all the upcoming events and all the things, particularly in the downtown area and around for the business people. And it kind of covers the whole area. So it's a good source of information for all of you. And thank you.
Wonder Valley has been quite heated meetings. We had a meeting this afternoon about the road tax issue. Javier spoke about this at the last meeting, and it's now come up for a vote, and so it's going up before the registered voters as opposed to the property owners. And so it's a very heated issue. But it looks like the new special tax will be $55 next year, plus the regular $15. In the second year, it'll be another $30, and that is to purchase a new grader and pay the salary of a full-time person to maintain the roads in Wonder Valley. And the community is quite engaged in this discussion, for lack of a better word. But we'll see what the vote comes out to be. Which is now up to the voters.
I know Max isn't mentioning it, but there was a groundbreaking of a church in Wonder Valley too.
That's right.
You're heavily involved in that,
Yep.
right?
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yes.
The grader out there the other day, it looks like it was running pretty good to me.
Yeah, we are moving forward. It's past the 10th powerful green tank.
Okay, in Landers, July 3rd was very successful. There were 500 to 600 people attended. Money generated was enough to pay for the event, including the primary contributor was Supervisor Ramos. And there were no shootings, no fights, no disorderly conducts. no alcohol was served to minors, just despite a rumor that was going around. And the Department of Aging tomorrow will be at the Belfield Hall Landers Association. Atia Beg from the Department of Aging has a wonderful presentation. I would encourage any of you who can pull such, who can schedule such a thing, invite her to your community association. For those 60 or 65 and older, it depends which program, the age cutoff. She has a lot of information and helpful, economical handouts. And also, inlanders, we did not receive information about a planned solar development, 35 acres in size, in the eastern part of Landers, north of Ritchie Road, between Valley View and, I'm not sure, do you know what that is? Yeah.
It's on Bowman Trail.
Bowman. Sunny Vista, sorry, Sunny Vista and Bowman. We did not receive comment. We did not receive notice of it. I complained to Land Use Services. They got back to me. Apparently, they're going to make some efforts to straighten that out in the future, so we do get notices. The MAC should be noticed for any of these solar developments in the Morongo Basin ahead of time. But we were assured that any comments would be forwarded directly to the planner, and they'll be included in the file. That particular project is in a fairly sparsely populated area. It's in a slight depression, so it's difficult to see from the road. And the transmission lines are planned they're underground. They'll meet, if approved, this would meet other transmission lines that are already below grade. So there have not been any negative comments that I'm aware of. We are not sure. As far as I can tell, they seem to meet most of the checklist, but they may not. We can't. My personal feeling is that we can't be against everything. So we'll see how that goes. We want to make sure that the community is aware of it, and we'll see what planning has to say.
Things are very quiet in Morongo Valley this month, and I really don't have anything special to report. I would like to ask any of you that would be willing to help on this committee for the Desert Renewable Energy Conservation Plan, if you would just wait a few minutes after the meeting so I can get your name and number, I would really appreciate it, because I'll need lots of help. Thank you.
I'm Mary Helen Tuttle, and Copper Mountain Mesa, if you read the paper, we had a great breakfast in July. We ran out of food, actually, so that was very big for us. We'll be having another one in August. Something that has always been very near and dear to our community center that has helped us keep the doors open has been HUD grants, the CDBG, and I cut this out of the paper. I don't know if anybody is familiar with these HUD grants, if your community center relies on it, but next Tuesday, July 22nd, the Board of Supervisor meeting is going to be a hearing to consider the proposed substantial amendments to the 2014-2015 CDBG block grant thing, the action plan for the coming year. And apparently it's on the website, so you can review any of the amendments. I haven't taken a look, but I guess I better get my button gear to see what it is. I'm hoping they may make the block grants a little bit more, maybe make the funding a little more available to the unincorporated areas. Right now, it's community centers or nonprofit associations and organizations that help the general public, for lack of a better way of saying it. They used to be able to apply to the county and get grants to do different projects. Well, the county has been trying to keep their overhead lower, so they have given that money now to the towns. So if you are a nonprofit organization in Joshua Tree and you want to get some money to, I don't know, put a new roof on or something, you have to go to 29 Palms or Yucca Valley to get your money, to ask for your money. And Yucca Valley had made a deal where they kept all their money for their splash park, so they weren't giving any money out. And then when you go to 29 Palms wants to know, well, how many of our people do you serve? What do you do? Da da da. And so really, there's no assistance from the county that's easily asked for, I guess, by these nonprofits. So it's been rather frustrating. So I see that now they're looking to maybe make some changes, so maybe they'll free some up again. So anyway, if anyone is interested, you can go to the county website and go to the community development information, and that's where they have the amendments that they're going to talk about during the next supervisors meeting, which is next Tuesday, the 22nd. Regarding homelessness, there is a Morongo Basin Haven meeting this Friday, the 18th at 10 a.m. in the Bob Burke Building in Joshua Tree. And it's going to be an interesting one, as there's going to be a young lady there speaking to experience as a homeless teen. So that will be interesting. And the one other thing is, we recently got a memo or a request from an Elizabeth Kirkland at the Pacific Clinic. She's the community outreach coordinator, and her question is simple: is anyone familiar with a location where homeless individuals can take showers for free? Well, yeah, besides the Tay Center for Aged Individuals. And that's it. So if anybody knows of any place else they can get a free shower, let me know and I can let her know. But there's only one place in this whole Morongo Basin. I don't know, I can't come to my house, but I would love to have a place, you know? I don't know. Anyway, that's that. Thank you.
Mike, I wonder if you could not take to the county, since this just came up, and I mean, I hadn't seen it before today, about the community block grants, and, you know, ask them for the MAC that we would like to see some of this money going to just nonprofits rather than those two towns.
Yeah, I agree. Every one of us represent community associations in the unincorporated areas. So,
Yeah.
yes, I will.
Okay.
Thank you. And I neglected to mention that we have one member absent, but we also have an opening on the MAC for a seat representing Joshua Tree. And so if anyone who would like to apply, please, you could send your resumes to me or send them to the county supervisor. Items for the next agenda. We know that we have Scenic Highway 247. Any other items? Okay. Yes, well, when Mrs. Vanderburg canceled, she was really scheduled to speak at this meeting, and she had to cancel. Her last day of employment is, I think, 10 days from now, and so she will not be coming. Elizabeth was able to reschedule. Were you, Elizabeth, able to reschedule Mr. Millington, her replacement?
She's sending a replacement.
Is that in August?
In August, yes.
Okay, thank you. With that,
Your mic is...
can anyone else not hear me?
Yeah, we can't hear
You can hear me? Okay. Thank you for coming. This meeting is adjourned.